So here are my plans for the coffee table. It's going to be 22 inches wide by 44 long and about 20 inches tall. And we're going to have a mission style. I'm going to do 5 slats on the ends instead of 6. And we'll do a through mortise and tenon for the stretcher underneath, as well as the piece into the legs on the bottom. Okay, so I need some legs, and I'm gonna make them. They'll be 1.5 inch square. So I got 3/4 inch board here. So what I need to do is cut a 1.5 inch strip twice, glue those together. But I need to be 20 inches long. So what I did, I cut this board. This is a little over 40 inches. But what I'm gonna do first to make it easy, cut this in half, fold this piece and glue it to here. Do one glue up and then cut the legs from the glue up. So I took my leg glue up out of the clamps, took my hand plane to create a smooth area put up against my fence. Now I'm going to cut the legs. Remember, there'll be 2 out of this piece. Now I have 2 legs, 1.5 inch square. These curvable cuts, here's my rough sketch on my outline here. I'll have to see how it actually turns out. So I need a little 6x2 piece. Cut this a little finer on my table saw and then cut this on the bandsaw. And here's a mock-up of the end of the table. So this will be through this leg at this end, and this will be through this leg over here. And at this spot right here in the center is where the piece that will connect the 2 leg units together will go. So I have a mortise to cut here, and I have a tenon on each one of these ends. One of the advantages of having a woodworking group is having other members who have better tools and more tools than you. Here we go. All right, we're going to cut a mortise with this mortising. Heck, I was so enthralled with this machine I couldn't even remember. It's a mortise cutter. It's a wonderful tool. It makes quick work, relatively quick work, of cutting mortises. This would have taken me forever, and I'm not sure that I would have gotten it anywhere nearly as straight as what you could with a mortising machine. It's helpful to have friends with all these tools. Be sure and get yourself some too. Now we'll flip it over and do the other side. So the key to cutting the mortises on a hollow mortiser is a heck of a lot faster than doing a chisel. That's why I went over to my friend Elvin's to cut this. So we want it to look like this, nice and clean and smooth. So a little chisel work in here and it'll be able to look like this and be ready for assembly. So add a little bit of a smooth edge to our coffee table. On our end piece where we'll have the long stretcher to the mortise and tenon coming out here, we're going to make a very slight arc on this from the edge of the leg all the way here to the edge of the leg. And so we've drawn this, but let me show you how we built that arch so you'll know. Because we're going to do it on both ends and we're going to do it on the front and back piece to the coffee table. Take a piece of wood longer than what your arc's going to be, about 1/4 inch is fine. You position or tighten it at the ends where you want the arc to stop. You move the arc up, in my case 1.5 inches up to where it does. Draw your line up from one end to the other and bingo, you got it. So I have all the edges of this marked. So for the edge of my tenons, so got the line, so I put pencil marks in here so I can see and help me when I make those cuts. So I'm trying to be a purist here by cutting these by hand. So tenons I figured were the easiest to do. So I don't know if I showed my ignorance or showed my lack of skill, but eventually I moved on to a little bit different way, hopefully a little bit faster way. Thanks to Mark Spagnola, watching his video on cutting tenons on bandsaws. Now I've got one end cut and it is exactly 1/2 inch wide. So now we're going to cut this other one. Let me show you how we did it. So I set this width to 64/100 of an inch, which is 1/2 inch plus the shoulder length. So now we're going to cut this other side. So we come in here and put my calipers on here. 1/2 inch, perfect, just what we wanted. Now I've got these numbered 1 through 4, so it's taking me to the 4th one to figure out the importance of this knife wall. And so I have cut this with my bandsaw. I had a knife wall in here. Now I'm going to come back and clean this up. And this knife wall makes it nice and smooth and allows the board to mount flush. Next step was to cut the arc in the apron, or the side rails of the table. So we had 2 of those, and they're about 40 inches long. So we have the same 1.5 inch height arc at the peak, and then we cut it in our bottom rails. This is where we have cut the tenons and the mortise in this piece, so we have one on each end, so we cut both of those with the same arc. So after cutting the arc, we get a little sander out and smooth our arcs to get it nice and smooth. Then we move on to cutting the tenon on the bottom stretcher. All right, this next tip I'm going to show you is how to extend the knife wall down about 1/4 inch with your Japanese pull saw, because I have a hard time being able to create a flush and straight knife wall. So if you just cut it down some with your Japanese pull saw, it'll be a lot easier because the whole line will be straight. Here's how we do it. So I clamp a board, this needs to be back just a hair, flush with my wall of what I'm doing here. So when I come down on this here, it'll be straight. Remember, all I'm doing is taking, this is my tenon now. So I'm just taking this down 1/4 inch. Now I'm just chiseling down the waist to get the tenon to about 1/2 inch in width. So you just work at that until you get to the right level. Now for our end pieces, we're going to prepare them to receive the slats. So we have 5 dowel holes to cut into each of the bottom rails. Again, these are the pieces that already have the tenons on each end and the mortise in the middle. Here we go. So now I'm drilling the dowel holes into the ends of the slats. So we have 5 slats on each side, total of 10 holes. So both ends, total of 20 holes. So you just drill away till you get all those done, get them nice and smooth, and then you can get them ready to install. Now comes the fun part of glue up. So this is a multi-tasking event at its finest. You got 5 slats and 5 dowels into the top piece and the same on the bottom piece. So you just get all your glue going and work as fast as possible. I hope you can get it all done before it dries. So we were able to make it. Now I'm drilling the holes in the end pieces that will go into these, which I've already drilled. So this will be in the leg, the same side as the mortise. Alright, now we're going to dry fit our mortise and dowels at the same time. There we go. Looks pretty good. So that's the table end. So now in the leg you have these matching dowels. So it shouldn't be an issue. You may have about 1/4 of an inch max hangover. So this is where the end piece goes and this is where the long rail goes. So with that, then you can dry fit it and make sure that your dowels aren't too long. Okay, so when I put the dowels together, they actually touch a little bit, so I can either shape the dowels at one end so they'll fit flush, or you can do this and just move the inset of the rail down 1/2 inch, because this rail is 3 inches. So I was a little bit concerned it might come out the bottom because that's where the curve starts, but it didn't. So we're good to go. That solves it. I don't have to trim any of the dowels. So on the other end, that's the method we'll use. So now I have my corbel inserted in here, and so my spacing for holes was down 2 inches. This is down 1.5 inches. So these holes for here are spaced in between those, so that's not a problem. Okay, now I have my legs glued up. Time to flush cut my tenons. So I'm going to use my Japanese pull saw. Put a little tape up against here to prevent any marring on this end of the leg. So. Alright, here's a tip for you when you're trying to plane the edge or use a card scraper on the edge to get off your burn marks or whatever. You need your little jig like this. So this is nothing more than a 2x4 with a little flat T-bar to hold it flat, and these two boards are just spaced 3/4 of an inch wide. I use this all the time for a menagerie of things you wouldn't believe. And to hold it, to paint it, to scrape it, to plane it. works great. You just put it in there and then away you go. Let's see how close we've gotten so far. Okay, 57 hundredths, 57, 55, 54. All right, so we just got a little bit of cleanup here to do to be able to get this thing down to the right size. This has been a fun build. This is my first effort at doing mortise and tenons, and I really learned a lot. So if you liked our video and our instructional guide on how to build a coffee table with mortise and tenons, give us a thumbs up. Want to see more of our videos? Hey, consider subscribing down below. And as usual, come back and see us real soon.